Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tulio Siragusa with Dojo Live. Welcome to another edition of our show. I'm excited to have our guest today, who is the co-founder and CTO of Pandadoc. And I'm joined today by my co-host, Carlos Ponce, in Mexico City, and Kim Lantis in Hermosillo. I am in Los Angeles, and welcome. We hope to make it informative today, and we hope to have a good conversation with you all can share it. Sergey, thank you for joining us today.
Excited to be with you guys. Thank you.
Sergey, you're checking in from St. Petersburg, Florida, correct?
That's correct.
Right? Okay, cool. Well, thanks. Welcome to the show. Sergey, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and your background. Let the audience know who you are.
I'm Sergey Barysiuk, CTO and co-founder of Pandadoc. I'm born and raised in Belarus. It's a small Eastern European country between Ukraine, Russia, and some other countries. And I lived there up until 30, I guess, when I moved to US 5 years ago. And since then, I lived in San Francisco a couple of years. And then I moved to St. Pete, Florida to open our third office here, which is already 70, 80 people. And it's been hell of a ride. I'm originally with the engineering background, started as a developer, went through probably all the stages of the engineering career, and then founded one company with my partner. We were doing software development and some smaller products. And then after this company, when we sold it, so we founded another one, which was basically Pandadoc.
Wow, nice journey. So, Sergey,
we all have something in common. We're all living in countries that are not the countries we were born in.
Yeah, true. That's so true. You're living in Mexico, born in Montana, raised in Montana. I live in LA and born and raised in Switzerland, of all places. So, we're all foreigners. That's what makes the world go around. So, Sergey, tell us a bit about Pandadoc. You're the co-founder there and the CTO. What gave birth to this idea that you guys decided, hey, let's create Pandadoc? What was that moment, that spark that gave birth to this business, and what do you guys do?
So the Pandadoc is the document automation software for sales teams. So what we help with is we're helping sales team to optimize the process, how they create sales documents, deliver them, track them, get them signed, and even collect payments. So you can think about that any sales process in your organization, you deal with the documents. And usually those documents, they're more or less like templatizable. We're talking about the proposals, contracts, NDAs, agreements, the SOWs and all those things. And so we build a platform which helps you to create those documents based on the template, deliver them, and track them, how the people open this, how much they spend time on those documents, and also get them signed electronically. And it all speed up and optimize the process. So we're basically helping organizations to transact better and faster. And the idea came from the internal pain. So we had the organization, and it was a software development organization, but we dealt with many, many customers, and the deals were quite small. So we had this velocity model when the customers coming to us and asking about the quotes and how much it's going to be. And we realized that the process we had was like too heavy for them to prepare like a custom proposals, then to deliver, and then to probably do something in Word, and then forget some of the previous customer name in the document, which is like very embarrassing. Then export to PDF, attach to email, deliver, and then guess what's happening on that side of the equation. Like, so are they even looking at this document? And what we learned that by the time we deliver this document, they're already gone with some other companies because the deals were so small and transactional. So we wanted to have a better process. So we created the app, which helped us to do this quickly based on the template and quote quicker, but also deliver those documents as a unique link. So when the customers open them, we could actually track and understand what's happening on that side, and even how much time they spend on particular pages of the document. And if they stuck on the pricing page, or if they stuck somewhere, we could have a conversation about this and maybe suggest them some help, or maybe follow up, and maybe even give a discount. And then the last step, when you need to execute this document, it also was a pain because they needed to print this out, sign, scan, send back. And that's basically 20% of the deals drop, because like it's just not very convenient to do, right? And you need this, not the customer need this in many cases. So we did this electronic signature part of the documents, so they can execute this document with their legally binding electronic signatures online, and you can get this deal going much faster. And obviously later we extended with the workflows and some other things to accelerate and simplify this process for sales reps as well.
Wow, that's cool. Because I mean, there's obviously a lot of document management solutions in the marketplace, but I was always curious what's unique about Pandadoc. So you're really just automating the process from proposal to closure for sales teams, which is certainly very time consuming. The going back and forth process. Can certainly appreciate that. Well, let's go right into the conversation today, because I think we're talking about an interesting topic. And Kim, would you mind introducing the conversation today and kicking us off today?
Sure will. Thank you. It's nice to meet you also, and thank you for sharing your story. I think your tool and what you sell is very useful, and I love that. But bringing us to today's topic, you chose the Founder's Guide to Hiring for Leadership Positions in a Growing Startup. Specifically, those high-level roles, right? And needing to know who you can trust and how to gain those leaders when you need somebody who's more experienced to take the company to that next level. So before we get onto that topic, I do have a question for you, Sergey. This is your third, I believe you said, company that you've founded?
It's a second one.
Okay, second. All right. So you do have some experience in that transition, and now you're doing it again. So let's talk about that, please. What's your guide for hiring leadership?
Yeah, it's actually quite vivid in my memory still, because I hired 2 VPs just recently, basically 2 quarters ago. And for each of the positions, I spent a lot of time. So I started in the beginning of 2019 and started interviewing for those positions. And like initially I thought like, oh, it's going to be like easy. There's so many good people and it's going to be easy. And we have a great company and we're growing. But then it turned out that it's actually a quite complicated task. So first of all, second, I probably even didn't realize how I need to be prepared. And so what I need to do from a founder perspective, from the person who's hiring, and how to overall set up this process to make it successful and close those positions faster. And I did probably around 100 interviews for each of the positions, VP product, VP engineering. So it was a lot of interviews. And I kind of crystallized at the end of the process, like how I would hire for those positions, what I would ask, what I did wrong in the very beginning, and how I got to the specific, I don't know, like questions, maybe structure, maybe process. And that's what I wanted to share today.
Perfect. Thank you. So, before you move on to the process, I'm curious, what was your process to know when? Like, when is the time to hit the go button? Like, okay, time to let my baby go, time to fly.
That's basically when the process starts. You need to realize.
If I could add a little bit to that, because this is a struggle with a lot of founders, right? There are very, very few founders that have taken their companies beyond $100 million, right? They're very good at getting it to 20, 30, 40, and then most get tripped up with this, chase the shiny item thing, right? Constantly needing to reinvent, which at some point you have to kind of hunker down and say, okay, we're going to scale now. So, and it's a very challenging thing. So how did you sort of figure out, hey, it's time to tap into some of the talent that knows how to do this well, the professional scaling, the guys who know how to scale a business? How did you, to add to the question, how did you kind of come to that conclusion? What was the moment I was like, you know what, we might need some help to do this?
I think there are a couple things in this question. So first of all, you need to realize for yourself that, all right, so you need help, and probably you're not pulling it off, or maybe you don't know a lot of things, and you can learn, but it also takes time, right? And when it takes time, when you're learning, so you're probably making mistakes. And in some cases, it's just a balance and kind of trade-off of what you're choosing, either like doing this yourself, and second, I kind of like bring in some people who did this before. And so you start realizing this when you start getting like scaling problems, you're adding teams, and you see that something is not going right, kind of like too many issues, too many problems, too many small things. And you could probably scale, but you understand that the operational piece takes a lot of time. This piece takes a lot of time. And then you end up with the too many focuses. And since you have like too many focuses, you start like spreading too thin, and things started like falling like apart. And it might be the problem with staff, might be problem with the not very clear direction where you're going because you don't have time to articulate this. Maybe it's not, I mean, a lot of things. And since also I'm a founder, I also need to pay attention to people, culture, and kind of like combine this being like a glue. That's one thing. That's kind of like a work thing. And second is, to me, I also needed to understand my own weaknesses and realize this, accept this, and start looking for help to kind of poke those holes and bring someone who could complement me very well, because you can't be great at all the things, right? Obviously. And you bring someone who complements you very well and can help you to focus on what you're good at, maybe spend some time on other areas so they can take over something. And that's kind of like a realization for the founders. It is, for some, it's very hard, but I think we were very open, like talking about this with my partner and CEO, like we're talking about this. He went through this, I was going through this as well. We kind of shared our own stories and helped each other.
Well, it sounds, I mean, it takes a lot of not only being smart, but also humility to be able to say, you know, I'm really good at the following things, but acknowledging that there may be some folks who are better at something than we are. But I think the biggest challenge often, and perhaps what holds founders back, is this idea that they've built a culture. And if you bring in other leadership from the outside, do you now lose that culture you've created? It's a very valid concern. So how did you guys navigate through that? You know, how did you take that into consideration as you were evaluating adding on leadership as a startup to not lose that culture you and your co-founder created?
I think it's a very, very important topic. And that's sometimes why people are hesitant to do this. But like culture is not, it's not something like set in stone. That's kind of like a people who form this culture and who's the part of the company. And so what we did initially in the very, very beginning, so we articulated this culture in a document. So we described like who we like to work with, like all the characteristics and how we see our values of the company. So we put this in a document, and the document is available online. You can search for Pandadoc culture code and you'll find this. So we had a pretty good idea and a clear understanding of what the culture is. And for me, it was important to match the people I interview and hire to this culture, so they can not just fit in this culture, but also improve this culture. I also understood that the couple of weaknesses we had, I wanted to close the gaps. And the culture piece was very, very important for me. That's why I spent a lot of time with the people who passed like initial interview stage, talking to them and trying to understand how I can work with, because for me, the personal relationship is very, very important. And it also was important for me to align on the culture, that what I want to build and how I see this, so we don't spend time on this later. Because if you spend time on the cultural thing and alignment, that's what will make you slow down, and you won't be able to focus on the things related to work, because you'll try to constantly realign on those cultural values and like how you do things and how to maybe treat people, maybe how you do certain things, etc., etc.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, and then I'll pass it on to Kim, because I'm sure she has a bunch of other questions around this, but if I'm hearing you correctly, don't hire for cultural fit, hire for cultural expansiveness. You know, hire individuals that can contribute and expand on the culture you've built. What were some of those cultural elements that were really important to you and your co-founder to maintain and preserve? And what were some of the new ideas that you opened yourself up to that were brought in by some of these folks?
Yeah, we have 3 cornerstones as a part of the culture, and like 3 elements. Learn, make an impact, and have fun as a part of the company. So it's a constant learning and constant improvement. We want to make a positive impact to the environment we're in, to the city, to the business, to the overall, like, to our employees as well. Life and have fun. Why? Because the life is, like, it's very beaten expression, but like, its life is very short to work at the boring company and do like a boring job, and you're constantly learning. And if you can have fun as a part of this, why not? I think it's really important, and it's like very logical, because you spend 8 hours at work, right? And for me, what I realized that I want to help my people grow, and I realized that sometimes I don't know like how to do this, because I'm doing this like on this scale first time, and I needed some help. And for me, one of the very, very important items as a part of the interview and the questionnaire I built was this kind of like grow people mindset, coach, mentor, leader. And I wanted to bring a leader who can help to elevate the whole company and my team all together with me, because I will be able to learn from him as well. So it was like aspect I was paying a lot of attention to, maybe less technicalities, maybe less like operational experience, but more like a coach, mentor. And I'm glad I found 2 of those people, and I'm already seeing results.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important. The other thing I'm hearing you say is, if you tend to be a founder that's more technically savvy or driven, bring in some leaders who could bring in more of the soft skills or the emotional intelligence type skills that could be useful to the entire organization. And that's one of the other things I'm hearing is the investment in expanding the emotional intelligence within the organization, because mentoring, coaching, that requires, first of all, requires the willingness to learn. So that people have to be able to be open to it. And that requires a certain level of trust. You have to create safety for people, and certainly enables intimacy. What have been some of the challenges for you guys moving in that direction, or was that ever a challenge for you guys? Because not everybody's open to that, right? Some people come from corporate environments, they go to startups, and they're not used to that very intimate kind of interaction. They're used to more regimented approaches to doing things, and don't often open up as much as you would need them to create that kind of intimacy. Do you guys come across any challenges with that, and how did you overcome them, if you did?
I think like for us, it was always part of the culture. And since you hire, you kind of do a culture fit element as a part of the interview, and you understand if the people are willing to be open and willing to learn new things, and maybe come into a less defined job description and position. So what they're doing may be less defined, because they will need to figure out things and maybe even look at this at a different angle. And since we hired those people, for us, it wasn't a problem to try to adjust them to this idea, because we control this. And from the very, very beginning, we were like this. It was a part of our culture as well, because we have grown in Belarus and doing sales from Belarus and moving to US and establishing an international company. It's all part of the learning. And sometimes we have this joke that it was the most expensive university we were still studying at, because we spent a lot of our own money in the very beginning, and we funded the whole endeavor with our own money. So that's why it was a part of the culture, and it wasn't a challenge for us.
When you're looking for these individuals, this idea of cultural fit, which is great, but how did you identify that, and what types of questions or conversations did you have with the individuals as you were going through your hundreds of potentials? And do you have any like red flags, things that happened that you were like, you're like out? Or what was the clincher, the nail? Well, I don't want to say the nail in the coffin, because that has a negative connotation, but what was the story or the thing that actually led you to choosing the 2 individuals who are part of your team today?
And just to clarify, so we're talking about the high level position, because like for developers, it's a little bit different. For other roles, it's a little bit different. Here,
Let's talk about, I think, the high level. That's the topic of today's conversation, right? Our leadership role.
Here, you don't know a lot. So you don't know what you don't know. And the challenge here is like you ask like very open questions and listen, and based on this, you understand if the people are like trying to uncover this like big thing, and you will see the process how they're uncovering this. It's a part of the interview, so you're asking questions, and it's more like a conversation, and it's very natural, comes super naturally. And obviously, I had like a script, and I had the items and the questionnaire I wanted to ask, so I could compare all the candidates the same. So I asked the same questions, but they're very high level, and I mostly listen. So, and from this listening, you get many things. You get like how the people formulate thoughts, how they communicate, are they concise or not? Are they like finishing up or not? Do they stop? Do they clarify you? Do they keep the timing and all these things? You get like many small things from this conversation, and it's very natural because it's the same when you meet people like on the street or your friends, and you kind of immediately get a sense of the person. It's the same here. And so we talked about things, but usually you understand this when they ask questions and they uncover your pain points, what you want to heal or what you want to like kind of pay attention to. And you dive into those conversations and you immediately see, oh yeah, they understand the problem. They understand the problem, they understand the pain, they see how it can be solved. They did this before. And that's when you come to the conclusion that, oh yeah, it's a candidate for the next stage. And that's when they meet team, that's when they meet some other leaders.
So when the interviewer becomes the interviewee.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I always say when it comes to hiring leaders, you got to look at it similar to dating, right? You're getting to know the other person because you're going to spend hopefully the rest of your life with them. Certainly want to spend enough time where you want to enjoy being around them. So what are some key questions that have worked very well for you to highlight identifying how that person would work with you? Are there any magical bullet questions that you inevitably kind of get to the secret sauce of uncovering the details that you want to uncover? I might be asking you to share your secret sauce a little bit, but if you don't mind, maybe there's a couple of questions those who are listening that they haven't thought of that have worked very well for you, Sergey.
So before the whole thing, I sat and outlined what is important for me in this position. And it's a less of a job description, but what are the main elements, how I see the position and what I want to achieve with this person altogether, like build a great engineering culture or build a great product or level up the team. And out of those questions, I started getting some kind of places what were important for me, like how do they treat people? Are they treating people the same as I do? And we don't even need to align on this because it's like so obvious that the people is the most important element of the company. And so they truly want them to grow. They're more like pro people, less about themselves, all those things. And it's a part of, your DNA. It's hard to explain because it's a part of you. And you see that, oh yeah, that's my person, right? It's just like we understand each other like very easily. And it's hard to explain because this sauce is going to be different for different people, obviously, right? Because they have like a different things. Or if you're hiring to close some weaknesses, you also pay attention to this. And you see that, yeah, so they know how to do these things. I don't know. And you accept this.
There's this parable that says if you really want to figure out a person who cares about people, give them a stack of quarters, and the ones who share the quarters with other people are the ones you want to hire. So that's a great input. Identify how people treat other individuals, how they deal with challenges and conflicts and so on.
And you also can do this yourself. But what I did, I introduced the person who passed me, I introduced to the team as well. They were part of the decision as well. And it was like a presentation as well. So they were part of the decision because essentially we're looking for the coach for them too. So.
Great. So far what we've learned is in terms of your approach to hiring leadership in a startup, identify people that will add to the value of your culture, expand on the culture, that treat people well, and that are people you would want to hang out with. Right? We have this saying in the Airsoft, we hire people we would. So anyway, as we're wrapping up, coming up on time, tell us a little bit about your journey, being an entrepreneur, building Pandadoc, expanding your business. What have been some of the lessons you've personally learned about yourself in this process?
Well, I think you need to come to a realization that every 9 months it's a different company. And you need to be ready that you're not going to be great at this stage. And that's what I learned from the very beginning. And you might be kind of like, you may understand a lot of things, so you may pick up things fast, etc., etc. But at the certain stages, it's going to be new for you, like completely new. And there are like different cycles when you scale a company, like 50, 100, 150, then 300, and multiple offices. And every single stage, it's new. It's a new job. So you probably need to be ready to learn a lot, and just realize that you're not going to be great at the next stage, and be ready to kind of grind and go through this.
I think that's some really beautiful insight. What are your processes or your indicators of, oh, I need to learn this, or what do you do to investigate and keep up with things?
At this point, I think like we have a goals and a very clear objective for the year, for the quarters. And we're kind of like, when we're deviating from those objectives, we understand that why are we not getting to them, like to the goals we set? And that's what triggers this self-retrospective, I would say, to understand what is not working, like what could we do better, or if we're focusing on the customer. So customer centricity was a very big topic for us for 2020 and continuing being a big topic for us for 2020. And it's a constant kind of analysis of what is not working in this process, what can we improve, and just doing like a slight tweaks and slight improvements, because it all comes down not one silver bullet, right? It all comes down to those like small things which all sum up and add up, and then you make this impact. So it's you also need to understand this, because there is no silver bullet usually.
That's great. And I think that's something that you can apply to all areas of your company, not just the leadership roles, but individuals and teams. I love that. I think we're coming to the end of our call today. Apologize, you guys, for the ups, the ins and outs. Everyone's like,
I lost the connection too. I lost the connection too today. I'm like, oh, 400 megabit link. What's going on?
So we've proven so far that Florida has the best internet providers.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it didn't like completely conk out. So at least the audience got the full. I missed the best part at the end. So anyway, I apologize. I'll have to re-listen after it's done.
Probably my daughter is not watching Netflix, so that's fine.
I literally was like, guys, get off the TV. I can't. The net went down. So no, I think it was actually a StreamYard issue. But anyway, glad we're back on.
Yes.
Sergey, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciated talking with you. We're going to wrap up. And just stay with us after we go off the air for a few seconds, just to wrap up. Everyone, thanks for joining us. And don't forget to tune in on Monday.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
Well, we have another show tomorrow.
That's right, with Travis Huff, Chief Social Marketer with Real Time Outsource. So tune in, same time tomorrow.
Take care, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.